Jeremy Hansen is heading to the moon. A fighter pilot from southwestern Ontario donned the mantle of Canada's new space endeavor as his country joined the United States in a bid to usher in a new era of daring global adventures beyond the moon and the stars. Colonel Jeremy Hansen, a CF 18 pilot from London, Ontario, emerged from a crowd of cheering fellow astronauts, a maple leaf patch on the shoulder of his flight suit, to officially join the crew of four that will helm Artemis II, the first trip to lunar space in 52 years. NASA and the Canadian Space Agency announced that Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen will be part of the crew of the historic Artemis II mission to orbit the moon. With Artemis I, the Orion capsule traveled 434,523 kilometers from Earth. The farthest any other human rated spacecraft had traveled previously was 400,171 kilometers during the Apollo 13 mission. For me, it's a bit unreal still, Hansel told CBC's Paul Hunter. I just want Canadians to feel that pride. I just want Canadians to realize, hey, we are up to big things here in Canada and can accomplish the seemingly impossible if we believe in ourselves. Canada gets a seat on Artemis II due to its contributions to Lunar Gateway, a space station that will orbit the moon. But Canada is also building a lunar rover provided by Canadensis Aerospace. Hansen noted that there are two reasons a Canadian is going to the moon, adding that it makes me smile when I say that. The first, he said, is American leadership and the decision to create an international team. The second reason is Canada can do attitude, he said proudly. Francois Philippe Champagne, Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, lauded the significance of a Canadian being part of the mission. In a news release, he congratulated Hansen for being at the forefront of one of the most ambitious human endeavors ever undertaken. This flight can be seen as part of the continuous history for Canada in space, reaching back more than 6 decades. It's not lost on any of us that the United States could choose to go back to the moon by themselves. Hansen, 47, told the gathering inside the sweltering hangar at Ellington Field, a joint military facility and flight operations base in Houston. Instead, the US made a deliberate choice decades ago to build a team of experts, engineers, adventurers, and dreamers from all over the world, a display of true leadership, he said, and a global mindset that no one can do it all by themselves. At the end of it all, I am left in awe of being reminded what strong leadership, setting big goals with a passion to collaborate and a can do attitude can achieve. Hansen said, "We're going to the moon together. Let's go." The other three astronauts on the Artemis II mission are all American: Mission Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, and Mission Specialist Christina Hamakoch. It's difficult to pick just four from a group that, by its very definition, attracts the best and the brightest that humanity has to offer, said Norm Knight, chief of NASA's Flight Director Office. Knight said the astronauts will be the forerunners as humanity look to find its place among the stars. Artemis II will be the first crewed mission to the moon since final Apollo mission took flight in 1972. After orbiting Earth, the crew will rocket hundreds of thousands of kilometers for a figure eight around the moon before their momentum brings them home. I'm very excited to see that a Canadian has been chosen to actually go to the moon. It's a major event for us, said Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, giving credit to Hansen and calling him an exceptional individual who will do all Canadians proud. The mission is a precursor test to ensure all systems are go for the next phase of Artemis, to put a man and a woman on the moon as early as 2025, an effort in service of the ultimate goal of eventually dispatching astronauts to Mars. Patience pays off. Born and raised in southwestern Ontario, Hansen recalled in a 2014 CSA interview that he also wanted to become an astronaut. For as long as I can remember, I was fascinated by space exploration, he said. I looked at the photograph of Neil Armstrong standing on the moon, and I wanted to see what it would be like to leave this planet, to look at it from beyond. Now he's getting his chance. Hansen said he found out about his role on the mission about a couple of weeks ago. The only people he told were his wife, his children, and his parents. According to the CSA, Hansen joined the Air Cadet program when he was 12 and then went on to study space science at the Royal Military College in Kingston, Ontario. He eventually became a pilot, flying CF-18s in Cold Lake, Alta. He is still a colonel in the Royal Canadian Air Force. Hansen was recruited by the CSA in 2009 along with St. Jack's. Since then, he has done extensive training in the high Arctic, spent 6 days training in a cave in Italy, and another 7 days with 19 meters below the surface off the coast of Key Largo, Florida, as part of the NASA Extreme Environment Mission Operations or NEMO project. In 2016, Hansen was the voice of Capcom, a vintage term from NASA's Mercury program days that stands for Capsule Communicator, at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. The following year, he became the first Canadian in charge of training astronauts from both Canada and the United States. Now, Hansen will spend his time training for his mission, which involves a spacecraft no human has ever flown before. Canada has been a part of space exploration since the beginning, as the fourth country to have presence in space. The Soviet Union was first with its satellite Sputnik in 1957. The US followed the next year with Explorer 1. The British flew Ariel 1 in 1962, and Canada was next with Alouette 1 the same year. However, both of latter satellites rode American rockets. Interestingly, the other first satellites have fallen out of their orbits and burned up in the atmosphere, while Alouette is still up there. After 10 years of operation, it was switched off, but it rides in such a high orbit that it remains in space. When we put something up, it stays up. When Canada canceled the Avro Arrow supersonic jet program, many scientists and engineers who had been working on the project went to NASA to participate in the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo programs that eventually brought American astronauts to the moon. Our famous Canadarm remote manipulator system was carried aboard space shuttles to launch satellites, including the Hubble Space Telescope, that attach modules to the space station and act as a cherry picker support for astronauts who rode the end of the arm during spacewalks. Canadarm 2 is a permanent feature of the space station, along with its hand dexter, which is used to attach space station modules and assist in repair work. Hansen is the 10th Canadian astronaut to be selected for spaceflight since our first Canadian space, Mark Garneau, flew on Space Shuttle Columbia in 1984. Chris Hadfield is the only Canadian to become the commander of the International Space Station. Canada has also contributed to space science with satellites such as the RadarSat constellation, which uses radar to map the surface of the Earth in fine detail regardless of cloud cover or time of day. We even have a scientific instrument on the surface of Mars aboard the Curiosity rover, which examines the rocks to determine their chemical makeup as part of the search of life on the red planet. This long history of Canada's role in space exploration will continue with our astronauts venturing to the moon, and a new Canadarm 3 that will be part of the planned Gateway space station to be built in orbit around the moon. We are also developing a lunar rover that will prospect for ice in the lunar soil. Canada has been something of a silent partner in the space program. We don't make a lot of noise because we don't build the big rockets. But we have been along for the ride since the beginning with our scientists, technology, and astronauts. And if humans move on to Mars, it's a good bet that Canada will be there too.